What's the difference between an emergency fund and a truck fund? And why do professional truck drivers need to have both? Hello, I'm Vicki Simons with TruckDriversMoneySavingTips.com. I promised back in August that I would cover the subject of an emergency fund, and tonight's the night I'm going to be doing it. Okay, so I'm going to be taking most of my tips from the page on our website called Emergency Fund, and the title is Your Emergency Fund Protects You from Unexpected Expenses and Loss. All right, so all people, including professional truck drivers, need to have an emergency fund to carry them through difficult circumstances or times of unexpected loss. And for professional truck drivers, that could include severe weather, a truck accident, or getting dumped by your trucking company. And of course, when Aero Trucking did that in December of 2009, they were eventually called on the carpet for it, but that didn't lessen the pain of the drivers being cut off without any support at that period of time. And of course, there was lots of outreach to those drivers during that time. It would have been helpful if they'd had an emergency fund. But the thing about it is what do you do when you have a truck that's not where it's supposed to be? So there was a lot more involved in that than just the emergency fund, but you understand what I'm saying. Okay, you could have very little or no warning at all that such a situation is about to take place, which is why it's wise to be prepared in advance. And depending upon who you are, you may or may not have or be able to rely upon the generosity of other people. So you must be prepared with an emergency fund. Okay, and I must add that this is only the financial angle of having an emergency preparedness plan in place. All right, so when it comes to credit and cash, all right, credit may become unavailable if the power is down during an emergency. All right, we had a situation when my husband Mike and I were team driving our very first winter out as a team. We encountered the blizzard of '93, okay, and the interstate was shut down across parts of Alabama and Georgia. It was really nasty. We weren't prepared for it. Those were back in the days before we had any sort of weather channel of any kind in the truck, didn't know anything about what was happening. And so when I saw snow on the green grass down along I-20, I was really surprised. Didn't know anything about that was going to be happening, but when we got to one of the truck stops in Alabama, after being stranded for the night, there was a situation where the power was out at the truck stop. They had no way of being able to cook any food, and all of the snack items were gone in the travel center there, the travel store at the fuel island. And so, you know, it was just awful. If you didn't have any cash on you, you wouldn't have been able to pay for anything. So, like I said, credit may be unavailable, and you want to keep at least enough on hand to be able to meet your minimum needs for 72 hours. Now, that's my personal recommendation. Okay, that's 3 days. So if you find yourself stranded like the Aero truckers were and you need to get home apart from your truck, you'll most not likely need to have a vehicle to be able to pay for your trip home. Now, that being said, I talked about doing a vehicle rental. If the power is down, they're not going to be able to take a credit card anyway. But that's a moot point. What I was talking about was being able, with an emergency fund, to be able to travel the distance from where you are to where your home is. And I took a wild guess back when I was doing this particular page on our website. What's the farthest point to the northwest, okay, in the United States down to the southeast? Okay, and I took the two likely areas of Seattle, Washington, and Miami, Florida, and calculated that on Google Maps as being 3,353 miles, and did a rough estimate about how much money it would take to be able to rent a minivan, to be able to take something that was big enough to haul all the stuff in your truck home. And I calculated it based on a number of miles per gallon, etc., how much it would cost for you to rent that vehicle and fuel it up to be able to run that. Okay, so you're talking about a substantial amount of money, all right? But that being said, okay, you need to be aware, okay, moving on, that An emergency fund is not the same thing as a truck fund. Okay, an emergency fund is for your personal needs, whereas a truck fund is for the truck's needs. All right, so emergency fund would be like to be able to pay for things like food and your transportation if you need it, things that are of personal nature. All right, a truck fund is to be able to pay for things that have to do with the truck. For example, a toll. Okay, a lot of fleets are going with that electronic toll system now, but what would happen if you were in a state where you didn't have the toll capability? Okay, one of those might be Florida. All right, there are a lot of places there are a lot of places out there that they're not on the grid of whatever it is that a lot of other places are, so you have to be prepared to be able to pay for that. My husband had a situation many years ago, and of course things may have changed since then, but the lumper where he was going to be delivering the load did not accept com checks. He accepted cash only. So what Mike ended up having to do, because we didn't have a truck fund that was that large in the truck at the time, had to take a trip, I think it was like 50 miles down to the nearest truck stop and get approval on a com check being cashed, and then take it back and be able to pay the lumper in cash. So that's an example of a truck fund, something that has to do with the operation of the truck or something with the delivering of your load. So I talked about the warnings about using credit, but anyway. Now, I also asked, is an emergency fund the same thing as an income reserve fund? Okay, and let me just read a little bit of this. It says, unless you live in a third world country, you cannot survive very long off the $3,000 target amount that we originally calculated in 2010 just to pay for the trip home. In addition to that amount or line of credit, we strongly recommend that you set aside an income reserve fund to carry you through a period of 6 months to 1 year. Your calculation of how much you need will depend upon how much you currently spend right now on everything: home, utilities, truck, food, insurance, etc. That is your monthly budget. And of course, we have an entire section on TruckDriversMoneySavingTips.com about budgets and budgeting, which I will encourage you to look at if you need that information. Save your reserve and designate it only for use in times of dire emergency. Some people like putting cash into other investment instruments, but whatever you choose should be easily accessible, and I would say it needs to be enough liquid to be able to convert that. Some people like putting their sensitive financial materials in a fire-resistant safe, like the one I've shown, and I've never known of a trucker to have a safe in his or her truck, but it's probably not unheard of. If you're not yet to the place where you have an emergency fund, we recommend that you start setting aside money for one immediately. All right, in this day when many truckers are losing their jobs, it's more important than ever, and it's wise to have at least 6 months worth of income set aside to get you through a difficulty. Now, when I said losing their jobs, okay, just this year we heard about a driver. He wasn't fired from his job. He lost it because he couldn't get recertified for his DOT medical card. Okay, there was something going on in his body that they were unwilling to recertify him, and so he was out of a job within a day or two. So in the event that you lose your job for whatever reason, you'll probably want to pare back to the bare essentials. You'll want to make a personalized plan that will work for you. Counting on deprivation may work well for a solo driver, but or an unmarried driver, but for many who are married and have families back home, that probably won't work very well. So if you need help developing a budget, please look at our website. We do have a beginner budget that's available through the free downloads page on our website. So concluding, all right, we recommend that you be debt-free. If you're still making payments on your truck, endeavor to pay that off as soon as possible. Have a reasonable amount of cash on hand at all times. You decide how much that is, but do not flash the cash. All right, what I'm saying is don't let it be known that you have that much on you. All right, have a reasonable credit card with enough of a credit line to handle your reasonable vehicle rental needs in case you need to make an emergency trip home with all of your belongings. Remember, the sun doesn't always shine. There are sunny days and rainy days. And what I mean by that, a sunny day is when you're earning money. A rainy day is when things aren't going so well for you financially. All right. That could be something like you're laid over for 2 days over a holiday, and who knows what. There are thousands probably of scenarios where a trucker would need to have some sort of emergency money on hand. All right, the point is make a plan in advance. Don't wait to start an emergency fund. Even if you can spare only $20 a week, set a goal and work at meeting it. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if you don't follow through, it may come back to bite you when you least expect it. All right, follow through. You can do it. If you need it, Mint, mint.com listed 6 steps to starting an emergency fund. 2 compelling thoughts from that article are: regarding a specific expense, ask yourself, if I lost my job, could I still afford this? If you answer no, it's a want, not a need. And so that you won't be tempted to spend it, make your money hard to get to, they said. We just ask, if you're a trucker who travels away from home for long periods of time, and that could be weeks or months, okay, where could you put your money that's enough out of reach not to spend it in the good times, but that will be available to you when you need it? All right, and our money saving tips I'll share in just a moment. All right, if you're getting value from this, would you please give us likes, shares, and hearts? It would mean a lot to us. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to get in touch with us through our website, TruckDriversMoneySavingTips.com, or below this broadcast, or if this has already been put into a YouTube video, in the comments below on our YouTube channel. That being said, the money saving tip is: consider the wisdom of paying cash, that is, not paying for things with credit, and thus also incurring interest charges for goods and services during times of loss or unexpected expenses. The old saying that cash is king comes to mind. If you have cash, you might even be able to negotiate lower prices on some things. You can only do this if you have an emergency fund in place. Okay, I'm Vicki Simons with TruckDriversMoneySavingTips.com. If you have an emergency fund and you've ever needed it, you've used it for emergency purposes, please feel free to share your experiences with us through our website or on Facebook. If you've not had an emergency fund and you really needed one and you had the opportunity to have one but you just didn't, okay, share your experiences with us if you care to. We'd also appreciate being able to pass that along for the sake of our drivers. Sometimes when we share things like this, it's kind of like, well, you know, it's just them, it could never happen to me, or something like that. So we appreciate drivers sending their review and their money saving tips to our website. Also, if you want to, you can also send a money saving tip through our app. Okay, Truck Drivers app on the Google Play Store is available for you to be able to do that. We will encourage you to be able to keep up with our various things through our website on the app. So this is Vicki Simons wishing you, on behalf of my husband Mike and I, great wellness, purpose, and abundance, safety as you're traveling, and lots of money saving opportunities. Have a great night, drivers. Thanks.